1. She moved to New York because that's what people like her do. People from smaller places who want to grow bigger in bigger places. The ones who already loom over the people in their small towns. She was a pretty girl. By the age of 15, her mother locked her out after her current boyfriend developed a crush on her. He would leave little gifts, a silver ring with a blue stone, soaps that smelled expensive, a box of 4 chocolates she didn't want to eat, but ate anyway because she liked chocolate. Sometimes he lit candles at dinner and pretended they were for her mother. Pretty has a price, she say, and it does. All things do. You have to pay your way through life like a toll road. You gotta hope you can keep coughing up those coins on demand from the treasure inside you. Her pretty was like that. Everyone who saw her wanted a piece, wanted to save, then spend her. But in a small town, there's not really much to buy. The land is utilitarian, pushing up crops, and the average-looking people it produced to harvest them. Pretty doesn't belong in the dirt. It runs to cities, where everything is clean, and every street a catwalk. At 15, her mother kicked her out. When she banged, she got silence, then curses. She tried for 3 days, then quit. No one wants to beg a mother to be a mother. She moved into an unused trailer down the street and tried to finish high school. She couldn't. She had too much to think about, too much to plan. Besides, the house was too small for her anyway. Then came the day she bought a bus ticket and left. No one came to the station to cry crocodile tears or wave. By then she was so large that if she'd said goodbye, it would have burst their eardrums. She sat in the first row, opposite the driver, with the whole front window to herself. Well, at least half. When she first saw New York City in the distance, over highways 8 lanes wide, it looked surprisingly small. But by the time the bus pulled into the port, it was mammoth. Here, there was room to grow. 2. She did a few years of penance in restaurants, relationships, and scams. She rented a bunk in a shared flat where an agency stored young models, flown in from overseas. She was as beautiful and strange as they were, but she did the cleaning and the shopping. She liked their accents, the way they sprawled across mismatched couches, peeling the skin from a single frozen grape, kneading it between their teeth to draw out every drop of sweetness. At least it was good to be among people her size. Eventually she landed in a loft in Brooklyn. Not the good part, if there are good parts of Brooklyn. The loft belonged to a model whose parents had bought it for her. But she'd left after someone broke her heart and fled to chase it. You'd think a model's heart would be too pretty to break. But she'd learned there were monsters in the world, and pretty hearts were like sweet grapes to some men with terrible appetites. And besides, as she'd said before, pretty has a price. She loved the high ceilings, the exposed brick, the oversized windows. It used to be a sugar factory, they told her. The pipes still smelled faintly sweet when it rained. She liked watching people through those windows at night. Tiny apartments lit like doll houses, lives happening inside them. She liked knowing she could go anywhere, any night, that the city was always waiting. 3. She found work as a party girl. She didn't look for it, it found her. One night out with the girls from the modeling house, the club owner approached her. Essentially, she became one of those fortunate girls paid to show up with beautiful friends. They got free bottles, a VIP table, and spent the night drinking, dancing, laughing too loud, and showing long hair and skin. To create a vibe, the owner said. But really, it was to entice the bankers who came in. Men who threw money on bottles and tables and tips. The vibe was for them, so they'd know they'd found a cool place, one with beautiful girls, a place to return to, in the hopes they could throw one of those models over their shoulder and run into the night with her, the hole in their pocket leaking little gold coins like a trail of future destruction. She thought that all boys must be given a list, at puberty, the items they must collect to know they've become men. The tailored suit, the watch, the closet full of shoe porn, the car, the old whiskey or rare wine, the cigars, the fancy pen, the motorcycle, and of course the pretty girl to loop around their arm like a bracelet. And the girls are told just to obey, to become wallpaper. Still, she loved the clubs each night. The drama of who went home with whom was exciting. Where she came from, there were no bars or men in pinstripe suits, only barns. Then one morning, she woke up, and it had snowed, inside. 4. The snow drifted across the wide wooden planks of her loft. Her boots were buried. The legs of her chairs were covered up to their ankles, if chairs had ankles. She stood in shock, pupils blown wide with disbelief, gripping the door frame and wondering what the fuck she was looking at. The door stayed locked, even when she unlocked it. She turned the knob again and again, until she couldn't be sure what was locked and what wasn't. The windows were sealed too. She stood in her oversized t-shirt, shivered and waved frantically toward the East River, but saw only boats slipping past. Then she noticed the wrongness. It wasn't snowing outside. It was only October. She went to the closet, pulled on socks and boots. She didn't have gloves, so she used socks for her hands too. She tried everything, smashed a pane of glass with a candle holder, but there was nowhere to climb down. 5 stories up, wind slapping her face. She tied a shoe to a broom handle with dental floss, wrote a note inside asking for help, and added her loft number. It didn't reach the pavement. Then she began throwing notes attached to valuable things, a label-name dress, a ring with help scrawled on a tag. People picked them up and carried them away like crows and pebbles, but no one helped. She banged on the walls, but the old factory brick held its silence, thick as time. She waited. She expected someone would come. No one did. Days came, lived and died, then weeks. She drank water from the sink, which still worked somehow. The radiator hissed, groaned, and gave up. Her phone was dead the first day. Her laptop blinked, then went black. The power stayed on, but just barely. Around her, the loft changed. There were storms, terrible ones, that blew snow until the pictures fell from the walls or flew like kites. It snowed until the fabric on the furniture froze solid. She huddled in her room, built an igloo of sorts from her comforters and nearly all her clothes, heaped over boxes she'd taped open to form a tunnel. She watched. The white mist, the howling wind, the thumbprints of darker somethings that moved through the snow in the living room. When it wasn't snowing, she'd gone to the kitchen and brought back every can of food. She rationed. It wasn't hard. She'd spent years watching models survive on hope and handfuls of air. But she lost weight. Some nights, while sleeping, she swore she levitated, floated above the snow, no ceiling, just sky, and she could almost fly out of there. 5. Spring finally came, in the kitchen first. Tiny green shoots poked up from the cracked subway tile. The grout turned soft as sand. Flowers opened without permission. One morning, the bathtub was gone, replaced by a stream. It curved gently through the apartment like a lazy curl of hair, entering beneath the east window and vanishing behind the Chinese wardrobe where she used to disguise her TV. The river was deep in the middle and shallow at the edges. There were little lilies, frogs, fish. She spent too much time at the window, looking down to where the river should continue through the building's front wall and cascade into the air, but didn't. She dipped her hand into the stream. It came out blue. Fingers numb, she gasped, laughed, cried. She bathed in it anyway, and as spring turned to summer, it warmed. Outside it was still deep winter, the ice 5 inches thick on the ledge. It was strange to watch the city in the distance, gray and frozen, while she stood in a golden heat, the insects chirping in the grass of her floor. 6. She had long ago stopped asking why. Surviving the winter had stripped her of those kinds of luxuries, but now in summer she tried to journal, at first, to have someone to talk to organize her thoughts into all those straight lines. But the pages turned soggy when it rained. Mold bloomed in the corners of her clothes. Eventually she stopped wearing them. There was no one to see. Slowly, the soil deepened under her feet. Mushrooms grew near the radiator. A tree took root in the corner, leaning toward the sunlit wall like it was listening. She began to garden. She took all the rotted food from the fridge and picked out the seeds: 2 tomatoes, a bell pepper, half a carton of strawberries, some mint. She planted the top of a garlic bulb, a pineapple crown, a bag of onions, a few soft potatoes. She'd sit on the grass, hands in the dirt, and talk to them. They became her journal. Not all of them grew, but enough. She learned to wade into the stream and catch fish with her hands. They had never seen a human before. Though they startled, they didn't flee. Maybe they even liked being hugged by the girl. When she ate them, like sushi, she didn't feel bad. She smiled, because even in the middle of the city, she was growing wild. 7. A deer appeared one morning, a small one, white spots on its back, trembling behind the hanging bubble chair. She didn't move at first, just watched. It watched her back. Days passed. It got braver, nibbled leaves, slept near the couch behind the record collection. Later, when it was comfortable with her, she could sit beside it and pet it. Its fur was as fine as her own, and somehow as dense as a man's beard. You can only eat fish for so long. So, she killed it, with a descending barbell, and a scream of both joy and horror. She cried the whole time. She ate it, slowly, thankfully. Afterward, she buried the bones beneath the lemon tree that had sprouted in the corner of the bedroom, and she started talking to the deer bones too. 8. Birds came. They nested in the high rafters, chirped at dawn, screamed at noon. One morning, while bathing, she leapt from the river, stood dripping in her garden, and screamed back, tried to beat them away with a broomstick, because their song was always the same. Then she gave up. Then she liked them. A peacock arrived, loud, arrogant, impossible. Every time it called, she sat bolt upright in bed, like a soldier waking from a war dream. It disappeared the next day. Praying mantises took over the windowsill. Caterpillars made highways across her bookshelves. She gave them all names, then forgot them. Time unraveled. She lost track of what she had once been, stopped remembering names, dates, passwords. The clothes left hanging in her closet rotted and vanished. The mirror in the bathroom fogged eternally with frost, even in summer. There were bad times. She tried to drown herself in the stream once, twice, maybe more, but each time her body fought back. She surfaced, gasping, angry, spitting water. We're built to breathe, she realized, to want it. Later, she tried the windows again. She stared at the world outside, the boats, the gray buildings, the industrial pipe along the building's edge. She considered jumping, but she thought the apartment wouldn't let her. As she leapt, naked, out the window, she imagined green tendrils reaching from the trees to grab her ankles, pull her back. At most, her forehead might smack the brick as they reeled her in, dripping blood onto the lemon leaves. Instead, she learned to fly. 9. It started with a leap, just a strange hop across the couch. But she didn't come down. She hovered. For a second, then two. Then she flew. She flew above the living room, over the small, thin trees that had kept growing, over the stream, and the space where the TV and elliptical had once been. When she was in the air, the apartment expanded, like a cathedral, and then a bigger cathedral connected to the smaller one. But when she landed, it was a loft again. She flew every day after that. 10. Years passed, or didn't. She stopped counting. The friend who owned the place never came back, or couldn't. Maybe she'd married a prince, or maybe she was stuffed under a motel bed. You could never be certain. She made up 100 stories. More animals arrived. An albino possum, a shy fox, blue frogs that never blinked. The plants grew strange. One glowed at night, another whispered, or maybe it was just the wind through its leaves. She knew the seasons by taste now, knew the scent of coming frost, the angle of sunrise in December, the art of surviving winters comfortably. If you started a fire and sang to it for a while, you could slip the fire inside the river and warm it. You could lie in the warmth of the water while outside the snow raged. It was good. She dreamed of parties sometimes, dark rooms, loud music, glitter she couldn't wash off. She saw her friends laughing, but not at her, with her. The champagne, the shared taxis, the whispered secrets that never mattered. She'd wake up with wet eyes. No one had come. No one ever would. 11. Then one day, in the middle of another winter, the snow melted. She woke to find the drift that had always piled against the rolling steel door was gone. She stared at it for hours before touching it, ran her fingers along the metal, cold, real. She didn't trust it. She went to bed and woke again, just to do the same. She hesitated, bit her lip, sat in the river, brushing her hair with her fingers, watching that door. Finally, she approached and opened it, just a little. The hallway beyond was gray, dim. It smelled of rust and old vomit. The pipes still moaned. A flickering fluorescent bulb buzzed like a small technological sun. She stepped out, one bare foot on concrete. Then she turned, slid the door shut, and locked it. She went back inside, to the deer bones, the strange frogs, the insects that sometimes bit her, the boats that came and went outside the window, the family of praying mantises she'd learned to feed with flies and crickets, the quiet snow, and the singing stream. Because the weather in her apartment was still changing, and she had learned to change with it.